Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are still working on Richard II. We're actually getting very close to the end of Richard II. I think it's on, we've got like 4 days left of this or something like that, and then we move on to Love's Labour's Lost, which is a totally different bag of worms. But anyway, we got to finish with King Richard II first. And today we get to hear from the Duke of York and the Duchess of York because Richard has been deposed. He is being taken to Pomfret. The Queen has been sent off to France. Bolingbroke has decided that Wednesday is going to be his coronation day. And yeah, things are a little weird, but as the play is finishing up, we need to figure out how this whole new regime affects all of the other people around. So we're hanging out in the Duke of York's place, and it's him and the Duchess. And quick little reminder of some other stuff that's going to come in important later in this scene. The Duke of York is the father of the Duke of O'Merle, and O'Merle, at the end of the deposition scene, O'Merle was very, very much on Richard's side. And at the very end of that scene, he sort of started some conspirational talks with a couple of religious figures, with the Bishop of Carlisle and with the the Abbey of Westminster or something like that. They decide that they're going to have dinner together and talk about how they can get rid of Bolingbroke. So that's where O'Merle's story has gone. The Duke of York is O'Merle's father, but is also a cousin to Richard and a cousin to Bolingbroke. So he had declared himself sort of Switzerland in this whole thing because he didn't want to have to take sides between his two cousins. And also he's kind of an older guy. He didn't want to have to go to war for anybody or any of that sort of fun stuff. So anyway, here we are in Act 5, Scene 2. And we're hanging out at the Duke of York's place, and the scene starts sort of mid-conversation between the Duke and the Duchess, and she's like, wait, tell me again what happened, because apparently York was out watching the processions that happened after the deposition and all that sort of thing, and she was inside, so she's asking for a recounting of the tale, and he's like, will you let me tell my story? And she's like, yes, you tell your story. And he says, then, as I said, the Duke, great Bolingbroke, mounted upon a hot and fiery steed, which his aspiring rider seemed to know, with slow but stately pace kept on his course, while all tongues cried, God save thee, Bolingbroke! You would have thought the very windows spake, so many greedy looks of young and old through casements darted their desiring eyes upon his visage, and that all the walls, with painted imagery, had said at once, Jesu preserve thee! Welcome, Bolingbroke! Whilst he, from one side to the other turning, bare-headed, lower than his proud steed's neck, bespake them thus, I thank you, countrymen. And thus still doing, thus he passed along. Alas, poor Richard, where rides he all the whilst? As in a theatre, the eyes of men, after a well-graced actor leaves the stage, are idly bent on him that enters next, thinking his prattle to be tedious, even so, or with much more contempt, men's eyes did scowl on Richard. No man cried, God save him. No joyful tongue gave him his welcome home, but dust was thrown upon his sacred head, which, with such gentle sorrow he shook off, his face still combating with tears and smiles the badges of his grief and patience, that had not God, for some strong purpose, steeled the hearts of men, they must perforce have melted, and barbarism itself have pitied him. But heaven hath a hand in these events, to whose high will we bound our calm contents. To Bolingbroke are we sworn subjects now, whose state and honor eye for eye allow. So basically it's just a recounting of what happened, but we do get a little flavor of where York's head is right now. He's not necessarily thrilled with Bolingbroke going through the streets and everybody shouting like, long live the king, to Bolingbroke and saying, you know, God save you and all that sort of thing, and Bolingbroke soaking it in. He feels a lot more sympathy and empathy for Richard, who is now being paraded through the streets with dust being thrown at him and nobody saying anything nice to him at all, and that kind of a thing. He's saying that if the people were not so hard-hearted, their hearts would have all broken. Looking at Richard, this man who was their king and who was just deposed like 10 minutes ago, being like spat on as he walks through the streets, and it makes him a little sad. But then he's like, you know what, we're English and Bolingbroke is going to be our king now, so we're sworn to him and we gotta kind of go that way and whatever, because remember, he sort of named himself Switzerland. So after this little speech, O'Merle comes in and the Duchess is like, oh, so what's going on? You're like, you must have been in the town. And O'Merle is being like real grumpy Gus guy. He's like, yeah, if there were things going on, I don't know about them. I don't want to know about it, blah, blah, blah. He's, being sort of emo. Oh, and also he lost the title of O'Merle and now has to be called Rutland, because when Richard was deposed, all the resorting of things, he's actually technically no longer the Duke of O'Merle. He is Rutland now. So York and the Duchess are trying to find out where he was and what he was all about, all that sort of thing, and he's not giving up too much. And then York notices that he has a letter, and he's like, what's that letter? And O'Merle's like, what, nothing? And he's like, no, really, what is that letter? And O'Merle's like, it's something that I really don't want you to see. And York's like, well, I have to see it now. So he forcibly takes and reads the letter, and we, the audience, don't necessarily know the contents of the letter, but given that O'Merle just went to dinner with some people who have decided that they're going to plot against Bolingbroke, we can presume what's in this letter. So York is like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, and you're a traitor, and get my boots, I'm gonna go turn him in. And the Duchess is like, what's in the letter? What's in the letter? Like, tell me what's up. And O'Merle / Rutland is like, oh, it's just something that I'm gonna have to pay for with my life. And she's like, wait, what? They're gonna kill you over that letter? Wait, what? Like, stop your dad, don't let him go. And York pulls on his boots, and he's all against O'Merle, and he takes off to riding. And the Duchess is like, go after him, go stop him, don't let him name you as one of these accusers that he's going to go name because of the paper that was taken out of your pocket that apparently has the names of all these people that want to kill the king at Oxford. Go get that paper, stop him from naming you amongst the conspirators, and I'll follow along behind because I tend to ride really slow. And that's the end of Act 5, Scene 5. Yeah, Act 5, Scene 2. That's the end of that scene. And tomorrow we get into Act 5, Scene 3. And then, I think there's really only about 3 monologues left in the play. So we'll be wrapping up the tale of King Richard very soon. And I will see you tomorrow for more. Mwah.